So this last idea is that these lines, these major connections of muscle and fascia, are like layers of an onion. And so when we approach the body, either with movement or body work, we're going to peel the onion. We're not going to go straight for the underlying big core patterns that might be sort of rippling out into the exterior. Why? Because Tom says that these core patterns often require super deep work, and that deep work often requires a lot of trust from the patient. And so it's better to build that trust slowly by working through the exterior patterns, the outer layers of the onions. Move through those slowly, start to unwind those, and then get to the core patterns. Get to the things that are rippling out to the exterior. The other thing, too, is that these outer patterns are often providing clues about what's going on in the deep core patterns. So, oftentimes, a rotation on the exterior is actually just a counter rotation, a response to what's going on in the core, in the spine, as affected by the psoas and these deep spinal muscles. So by sort of unwinding or peeling that first layer of the onion, we're actually getting a better view of what's going on deep within. So if we're thinking about the body as an onion, then we could think about the shoulder girdle as being the outermost layer of that onion. And this makes a little bit of sense when we think about the function of our arms and our shoulder girdle. So I don't know if this originates with Ido, but I remember him saying, breaking it down like this, that with the legs, we locomote, with the spine, we organize, and with the hands, we manipulate. So that gives us an idea of how the different parts of our body help to function and move in our environments. So given that our hands are the manipulators of our external environment, then we would want to have a lot of range of motion, a lot of mobility in the shoulders and the arms in order to intricately interact with the external environment. So this is mirrored by our anatomy. If you look at the evolution of our shoulder girdle and you start to look at the anatomy of quadrupeds, like if we took, for example, a horse, then we see these, homologous structures in the bones, but we're going to see a different orientation of the shoulder girdle. So basically, we've got a much narrower rib cage in a horse or a dog. We've got shoulder blades that are going to sit right on the sides laterally. And we've got the serratus anterior functioning as this like sling that's holding up the weight of the torso of the horse. So you can imagine it's just this piece of fabric that's going around the belly, holding it up from the stability of the shoulder. So this is another reason that we've got the narrow rib cage in these quadrupeds is that they're keeping their legs as close to the midline as possible so that they can have a lot of stability in these compressional structures of the legs that's going to help to stabilize and hold up the weight of the torso. Now, if you go to Homo sapiens and look at our arrangement of the shoulder girdle, you're going to see that we have a much wider rib cage laterally. You're also going to see that we have our scapula, our shoulder blades arranged on the posterior side, on the back side, rather than on the lateral side like we have in the quadrupeds. We've also got these collarbones, which are helping to bring our arms further away from our midline. Now, what do all these features tell us? Well, we could guess that now that our arms have moved further away from the midline, we're no longer trying to support our body weight in compression like we were as quadrupeds. We're not trying to hold ourselves up with this sling of the serratus. Rather, we're holding our body weight up in tension via hanging, like apes. Like apes, we swing from branch to branch, and we use the tension along our arm lines, across our chest, through our shoulder girdle to support our weight. So having this wider rib cage allows us a lot more range of motion and all of these swinging, brachiating movements that we have as apes. So given that we see that our shoulders are quote unquote designed for mobility, then this is going to affect our training and our body work in a few ways. So first of all, it's going to go back to another idea that Ito has talked about, which is that strong arms mean shit. So if we know that the shoulder girdle, the arms, are this outermost layer, and structurally they're quote unquote, again, designed to give us all this mobility, then it does not make sense to be focusing strength training on biceps and triceps. Really, true stability, true organizational strength is going to come from the torso and the legs. This stability and strength is then going to be rippled up into the more mobile arms. So again, we're going to focus strength on the core layers of our body and then use this outer layer of the onion for mobility and manipulation of the environment. So we can move in very intricate ways with our arms, but we're not going to be focusing on pure raw strength in our training of our arms. Okay, and so the structure and function of our shoulder girdle and arms is also telling us that we need to include a lot more hanging and swinging into our movement practice. Even if you do go to a gym where there are bars and things to hang from, most of the time you'll just see people doing pull-ups, which is good. But actually, as apes, we have a structure that's more conducive to hanging and swinging than it is to climbing. Climbing is the specialty of monkeys, and swinging, or brachiating as the fancy term goes, is more the specialty of apes. A monkey has less range of motion in its shoulder, which makes it a little bit more difficult for the monkey to hang passively like this. However, they have a lot less weight to them, which makes it a little bit easier for them to climb and pull themselves up branches and surfaces. So, spending a lot of time passive hanging is a great way to mobilize, because you're going to be opening up the tissues in your shoulder girdle, you're going to be opening the joint capsule, and you're going to be decompressing the spine. So passively hanging from a bar for 3 to 5 minutes a day is a great way to just ensure mobility and health in your shoulders. But on top of that, you can do all sorts of swinging like you see kids do on the monkey bars, which Frank Ferencich would call the ape bars. So you can do all sorts of swings from bar to bar or branch to branch, and these are going to provide more dynamic mobility in the arms and dynamic strength in the shoulder girdle. All right, and finally, we want to think about how we're going to align this outer layer on top of the rest of our layers. So one thing that Tom talked about was how in dissection, if you pull out this outer layer, this shoulder girdle, how surprisingly heavy it was. can't remember the number, but it was something like 30 pounds or something like that. And, a pretty average human cadaver. But if you think about all that weight just resting atop your rib cage, basically resting atop your breathing apparatus, that's a huge weight to be carrying around all day, every day. And so the position or the alignment that you have to carry that weight, that burden throughout your day is hugely important. Tom makes the metaphor of the shoulder girdle being like a yoke. So if you just picture your arms as this yoke structure, then you're naturally going to want to try to find this nice midpoint where you're going to feel stacked and aligned and like you can carry the weight of those heavy arms throughout your day. And naturally, this will allow greater ease in your breath. So if we think about, for instance, having protracted shoulders, having this yoke be slightly forward, even if this is just a pattern from lifestyle, just driving around, sitting around a lot, or focusing your movement practice so much on pushing rather than pulling, having the shoulders just a little bit forward is keeping that yoke, that weight of the shoulders forward of your ideal stack of your spine, forward of this ideal alignment. And that is super taxing. You're constantly going to be pulled forward by the weight of this structure, and that's going to make it harder for you to just move about and stand and maintain good posture. It's going to be constantly draining your energy, and it's really going to be weighing on your ability to breathe. Having this forward pressure of the yoke is going to make it very hard to expand into your rib cage. So obviously this goes the other way too. If you pull the yoke in the opposite direction, you pull it towards the back, it's going to have just as much negative effects. So we want to just think about the shoulders as resting right on top of our spine so that we have a nice way to carry that weight. We want to have a lot of alignment in our spine and stack all the way up through our feet to carry the weight of our shoulders. That's going to allow us to feel nice and strong and grounded and breathe real easily. All right. Thank you once again to Tom and the Anatomy Trains folks. That was an awesome weekend. And thank you for listening. Go get on a branch and swing around. Ooh, ooh, ah.